The classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think I got this book from my dad when I was in high school. It's from the 1920s or 1930s. Dale Carnegie is this famous success coach or mentor, and he really started the success literature, I think, with some other folks. And this is really just a classic. It's really not that hard to understand. You just have to be a nice person and be good to people and be interested in people. But this really shaped, I think, the way I practice law and the way I just treat people in general. It's now become hard-coded and part of my DNA, but it's probably the most important foundational book I ever read. At the time, I'm not sure I really understood how important it was to me, but I remember reading this as I was preparing for maybe like a college admissions exam or interview, or maybe I was interviewing for a job. I don't exactly remember, but I've read this book many, many times since. And if you haven't read this, you probably need to. This is one of those things, if you're in business, it's required reading, in my view. And it's just a great operating system for how to be successful and not be an asshole and to have people like you in a genuine way. And everybody's got their own personality style and their own quirks and the way they do things. And this doesn't try to put you into any one mold. It just uses your existing personality and your existing way of being to just really be a good person and to make people like you. And when people like you, they will help you and they want to give you things. And really that's sort of I think the key to success. And it makes you interesting and it makes you want to hear about other people and help other people. So, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Baseline foundation book. Endurance by Alfred Lansing. Okay, so this is about the great polar explorer Ernest Shackleton's quest and his shipwreck, that he got trapped in ice in I think it was like the 1920s or 1911 or something like that. In any event, he and his crew were shipwrecked around the South Pole, packed in ice for a couple years. And it's just the greatest book on leadership ever written. It's actually the greatest adventure story ever. Couple spoiler alerts. First off, nobody in his crew died. Okay. These guys went on an epic journey. This is before, obviously, cell phones and internet and modern navigation. They walked across hundreds of miles of ice, sailed across in a 22-foot open boat, like 800 miles of just insane weather in the middle of winter in the South Weddell Sea. I mean, they were like reindeer snow boots and sleeping bags, and just Ernest Shackleton's way of leadership and keeping everybody moving. And keeping everybody alive and keeping their spirits alive. It's the most moving book I've ever read. It gives me chills just thinking about it. I've read it probably 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Maybe more. I'm not even sure. Whenever I'm a little bit unsure of myself or feeling like I'm not being a good leader, I go back to this book. And I think it gives me some inspiration and really helps me work through some really difficult times. The story is like incredible, incredible, incredible. And just reminds me that the human spirit is indomitable, and people can do anything that they put their minds to. And so I absolutely love that book. I recommend everybody read it. Okay, The Count of Monte Cristo by Dumas. You have to read the unabridged version. This is a novel, obviously, and it's probably one of my favorite books ever written. It's the story of this gentleman's revenge. The Count of Monte Cristo's revenge is so compelling and so fun and so detailed and so rich and so fantastical. And it was written, I think, in the 1850s or 1860s. It's still relevant today. It's a long book, but it's totally worth it. It's something you can really dig into with a cup of coffee every morning or something at night. It's just a wonderful book. The twists and the turns and the richness and the story and the storytelling and the characters and the hero's journey and the paradigm that it's written in is just really, really cool and fun and just so memorable. It's sort of hard to think that a better book has been or will be written. because I don't think there will be one. Except for, of course, Dune. Sometimes less is more. And this is one of those books where less is more. It's science fiction, fantasy, philosophy, ecology. It's a hero's journey. It's everything a good novel can and should be and needs to be. And it's all packed into this. Dune is unbelievable. I'm not going to say anything more because you need to go read it. Everybody should read this book. Unbelievable. As a gentleman would say, this was put out by Brooks Brothers in like the early 2000s or the late 90s. I thank my mother for getting me this. She got me this, and As a Gentleman Gets Dressed. I think these were in my stocking in the late 90s or early 2000s. And I would read these, just like little pages at a time in high school and college. And I think this goes along with Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. But it's just sort of this, I think it sort of codifies how to be a gentleman and how to interact with people in a professional, friendly, easygoing way. And it really, for me, helped establish another baseline, like how to win friends and influence people, on how to interact with people, and just this code that I've developed over time of just being friendly and nice and what to say, how to introduce people. It's sort of like a male etiquette book, which I think is totally lost now on people. Maybe it should be How Not to Be an Asshole, is a good title for it. But it's called As a Gentleman Would Say, and this book has been foundational for me. So check this one out. If you can still get it, by the way. 1491. This book is insane. This is nonfiction about what was in the Americas before Columbus got here. And then sort of the companion book is 1493, which is, sort of America after Columbus. I think people understand this intuitively, but before Columbus got here, in 1492, there was a whole, here being the Americas, the North American and South American continent. I mean, there were whole civilizations here for 10,000, some people postulate 20,000 and even more years. And what that was like before Columbus got here, and these thriving societies and civilizations and religions and spiritualities that folks really just don't understand. And of course, one could argue, and this author certainly does, that the arrival of the Europeans was a turning point in world history, of course, and just changed the total landscape and the culture of the Americas. But there was a lot going on here, again, in the Americas before Columbus got here. And it's just the most interesting thing. And the technologies that these peoples had, I think, is really revealing. A lot of folks think that people were living in, wigwams, which they were, by the way, but, without any technology. And that's just not true. There was a lot going on in the Americas before Columbus got here. The population of what is now the United States, but North America, was in the millions. And it's just a really, really fun, interesting, cool book. This is actually a page turner. Really hard to put this book down. So I love this. Totally changed my perspective on things here. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, a classic. I think most people who are in leadership or success or trying to better themselves read this book. Viktor Frankl, this is written in time of World War II. Viktor Frankl was a Jew and was interned in one of these prison camps. And he developed this philosophy to help him and others make it through these concentration camps. And it's basically, if you can control your thoughts, right? The one thing that you can control is your thoughts and your spirit and the way you react and respond to things, and not let outside influences degrade that, is how he developed a system to survive. And that philosophy about searching for meaning really helped him and has helped me, and I'm sure millions of other people, get through some difficult times and work through some things. So Man's Search for Meaning Classic foundational book. Got to read it. This is an old one, beat to shit, because I've read it. I think I probably read this like a page or two or three every night. Seneca, Letters from a Stoic. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher and playwright. It's just really, again, sort of back to this idea of an operating system for people, a North Star to come back to in turbulent times when people are going through some things. So, A Letter from a Stoic is about these letters that Seneca would write to Lucilius, who I think was his student, and he would answer questions and tell stories. And it's a philosophy book, but sort of hidden in these letters that are just absolutely amazing. The logic behind them is really cool. I'm a lawyer, so I have to think logically. And so this book has a lot of logic in it, and in the way that the letters are written and that the arguments are played out and reasoned through. It's just an amazing, amazing book. Really fun to read. Just read, a letter at a time, and you'll be a better person, guaranteed. Back to, or staying on, I should say, Stoic philosophy, the great philosopher king Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. This is an interesting book because it's not really a book. These are sort of his journals or his journal entries that have been compiled together. My understanding from contemporary scholarship is that folks never thought that he didn't think that this was going to be turned into a book. They're reminders to himself, little aphorisms. Sometimes there's longer passages about how he gets through some very difficult times as emperor, at war, dealing with his children, death. It's one of those books that I turn to a lot because life is difficult, as M. Scott Peck says. And, in order to get through and be successful and loving, you've got to deal with that kind of stuff. And again, philosophy for me is the way to do that. And so Marcus Aurelius is a Stoic philosopher and talks a lot about that, and how you need to respond and not react to things, how a lot of things are out of your control, and how it's the wise man accepts the things that are out of his control and then understands the things that are in his control and how he can deal with that. So for me, very important, very good book. What else do we have here? The Untethered Soul. This was offered to me about 10 years ago by a gentleman named Adam Markel. It's maybe more like 15 years ago, when I was a lawyer, coming up as a lawyer at a big firm. A lot going on, very difficult period in my life. And this book really changed my life. And I sort of learned about consciousness and who we are, or who you are. And you are the consciousness receiver, the thing that receives consciousness, the thing that knows you're thinking, the thing that can recognize thoughts. And that concept, and when you meditate on that kind of stuff, is very freeing. So The Untethered Soul, maybe the second most important book I've ever read, possibly the first. I mean, I've reread this thing 20 times. I've given this to everybody. I've got like 20 copies at my office, in my house. Just a great book. Then he followed up with The Surrender Experiment. The Surrender Experiment is Michael Singer's journey through a whole bunch of crap. So he basically started WebMD, got in a lot of trouble, and it talks about how he just let things go, and that if you let things go and just let life take you, there's a plan for everything, and that it all works out. And sometimes, especially for me, it's so hard when you're in the middle of it to understand that stuff and to think that you're in control, but you're really not. So when you surrender and just let life unfold, sort of like riding a wave. If you just ride a wave, you're going to go. If you fight the wave, you're going to be in deep trouble, right? So letting things go, letting things move through you, is what this book is all about. Very, very helpful to help you understand and move through difficult times. Shantaram, another novel, awesome, about this fellow who broke out of an Australian prison, I think in the 80s, and then moved to Bombay in India, and about his, it's actually uh, I think it's fiction, but based on some level of truth. But it's so cool, an epic story of um, just adventure and swashbuckling and philosophy and humanism. Wonderful book. Probably my third favorite novel. Maybe my fourth favorite novel is a new one called The Sun, about this fellow in, I don't know, like the 1850s or the 1860s in what is now Texas. He lives out in the prairie. Native Americans come and raid his family's settlement, and he joins a Native American tribe. Another tale of just testosterone and swashbuckling and success, and sort of kind of like an analog to The Godfather, Mario Puzo's Godfather, but set, of course, in Texas in the 1850s and 1860s. Awesome book, so fun to read. I recommend that to everybody, particularly men. It's a good male book. 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. This is another one, new one. We only have about 4,000 weeks on this earth on average, and it's really just this is actually, I think, sort of a philosophy book, but it's called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mere Mortals, and what we do in those 4,000 weeks and how we divide those up and get things accomplished and do the things we want to do. So that was a really fun book for me to read. I think about it a lot because 4,000 weeks, when you think about it, is really not a lot. And lastly, The Obstacle is the Way. I've lost the cover by Ryan Holiday. He's got 5 or 6 of these philosophy books now, but The Obstacle is the Way. That's the title of the book, and that's sort of the thesis, that the obstacle to whatever you're dealing with is the way out. And, this stuff is so, you hear these the sayings that, the only way to get through, the only way to get out is through, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and all of that stuff is so true. And he talks a lot about this in this book, that you're being tested in these moments of uncertainty and difficulty, and you get through them, and they make you stronger, and that's what all successful people have to go through. And it's, in my view, so accurate. What a wonderful book. I've recommended this a lot, and I've read this a lot. So those are my favorite books.